Lovely to chat to you. So please tell us, what can we expect from Foundation Season 2, and in particular from your character?
So Foundation Season 2, I guess Season 1 I feel like has set up a lot of the different worlds, the different factions, the major story points, and I think Season 2, because of that, is able to hit the ground running. We have the setup now, and there's a kind of momentum to this season. I play Hober Mallow. He's a kind of intergalactic con man, I guess. Sorry, I thought someone was pinching my bum. They're not. He's a sort of intergalactic con man, and he's reluctantly kind of drawn into the second crisis, and has to make a sort of decision if he wants to. History kind of calls his name and is like, do you want to come and sacrifice and be part of this bigger cause, or do you want to continue down a different path? And he has to make some big decisions. But it's fun. It was a really fun part, and I can't wait to see it myself, to be honest. Have you seen Season 1? Have you watched all of it?
Only some of this season, but yeah.
Okay.
To see the rest of it myself.
Okay.
And what is it about the show? I think just the reaction to Season 1 has been absolutely phenomenal. What do you think it is that's really captured people's imaginations?
I think for a long time, Foundation was sort of considered the show that couldn't be made because the books are so vast and so expansive and are dealing with essentially like the collapse of an empire on a galactic scale, and the minutiae of that, from how people live their lives to this, the timeline is kind of unwieldy. You're dealing with hundreds, thousands of years looking in the past and looking in the future, and it's a kind of tough show to get your head around. And I think David has managed to find a way through all of that and created a really exciting, different show that really honors the things we love about the books, and found a way to bring it to life onto the screen. I'm a bit of a sci-fi nerd, so for me, I'm like, I see the visual effects and I know what the scripts, what David's written, and you start to see it all coming together. And I think there's not really anything as ambitious as this. David has kind of got several series running in his head, and he's thinking quite far out, and is planning things now for future series, and it's a huge undertaking, and and a lot of work has gone into it, and I think it's paid off.
And in terms of, stepping onto those sets, I mean, the scale of it all must just be quite overwhelming sometimes, and also keeping track of all the details and all the time travel.
Yeah.
Do you ever get a bit lost yourself? Or if you're a bit of a geek, maybe you've got it down?
I mean, I guess for me, in terms of what I'm doing, is kind of easy. It's my character. I know his story arc. But when you sort of step outside of that, he is a small speck. When you read the book, some characters are within one chapter, and you turn the page and you're 150 years in the future and they're gone, and there's this kind of sorrow because you're like, I've just invested in them, and we've jumped forward, and you realize how sort of irrelevant everything kind of is in when you look at it from this sort of timescale. So I managed to kind of keep my head around all those things, not to the level that David has had to. And with regards to the sets, they're just incredible. I mean, spaceships and new planets and the costumes as well. You're having to create these new cultures, and it's. I think it's sort of artistically satisfying for a lot of reasons. I think we have incredible concept designs, incredible visual effects team, incredible costume designers. And the actors are all right as well,
Coming to those, how has it been working alongside all these amazing people? And did you have a favourite moment on set?
I'm trying to think back now. Firstly, the cast, incredible cast to work with. Super talented. Everyone comes from sort of different backgrounds and different ways of approaching acting, and I always find it really interesting to watch how people work. And learn a lot that way. And moments on set, I think, if I say too much, it's sort of giving away an episode. I'll say there's a big explosion. Can I say that? And then no more?
And ultimately, what do you think people can take away? I mean, as we've mentioned, just all that you can get lost in sci-fi, and the imagination that can go into it, imagining different types of worlds, but then a lot in the characters that also people can really relate to. So what do you think the takeaways might be?
I think when Asimov wrote the books, my understanding is that he had been researching the fall of the Roman Empire at the time. And so he decided to sort of mount that story into a galactic kind of empire that's collapsing. And so I found it really interesting from a sort of historical perspective. I mean, it's science fiction, but there's a sort of quasi-truth to it, which is about how human beings, the timeline that we live on and how fragile that can be. And I think when you start realizing what Asimov has written and what Harry Seldon is, and the theory that he's created, there's something so kind of incredible about that. It's like theoretical social engineering on a massive scale, and that deals with the survival of humanity. Very relevant today, I guess. Yeah.
And also, I think in the fact that, something that sci-fi can open up, and also like, having shows like this on streaming platforms, is the diversity of the cast. And I think it maybe sort of like opens us up from some of like, thinking cinema always used to come out of Hollywood. It was all rather sort of narrow. And I think shows like this show you that actually you can have such a broad spectrum of people represented.
Yeah. And I mean, it really works. We've got a future world that is like, can be anything that David has imagined it to be, and he's managed to, within that, find ways to really create multiple cultures within the Foundation world and bring them all to life. And I sometimes imagine, like, how do you do that? Like with the costume designers as well. You're like, we still have forearms. We still have two. We still have 4 arms, right? It's just me. I've hidden them. When you're trying to design new costumes, I remember speaking to the costume designer being like, how do you do this? Because how do you do a sci-fi costume that we haven't seen before? We still have to wear it. And it was just so fascinating watching how everyone has managed to find new ways to tell their stories in their different disciplines.
And just very quickly, do you know what you're going to be working on next? And who's on your bucket list? A director you'd like to work with, or a genre you'd like to try?
I'm working with Roland Emmerich at the minute on a show called Those About to Die. I actually flew in from Rome last night to be here. Very busy for once. It's a show about, weirdly, Roman Empire, the actual Roman Empire. And I play a chariot racer called Scorpus, who is one of the greatest chariot racers of all time. He really existed. And so I've been learning, chariot racing and stuff the last few weeks. Having fun on that.
Bucket list, director, genre?
Jonathan Glazer. I mean, I'm a massive fan. I know he's got a new film out called The Zone of Interest. I read the book and was like, wow, this is going to win in his hands. This could be something really special. And what I really like about his work is that everything has a totally different DNA to it. They don't look like Jonathan Glazer movies, except for the fact that they're just incredible. They all feel so different, and this is him branching out again in a totally different direction. It's Jonathan Glazer.
Shout out to Jonathan. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing all that. Really enjoyed the night. Thank you.